Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to The Art of Comics. I'm your host, Andres Salazar, and today we're going to continue the mission of the channel, which is the education and edifying of the sequential art form, understanding comics, how they're created, appreciating them, so that when we are involved in comics and get to enjoy them, we have a better understanding and appreciation. So, to continue the mission of the channel, let's do a little bit of education here in a moment. And today we're going to start with my work, my own work. And we're then going to go into some other work that you guys might be familiar with. Just talk about page and panel composition, just kind of basic things like that. But before we even get into that, let's do a little bit of quick housekeeping. If you want to learn about my work and the things that I do, this is called Shangri-La. It's a crime story set in the 80s in the South trailer park. But if you want to see some of the other work I did, I just came up with a comic book just last week, a 24-hour comic book project, which some of you might have seen on the other live feeds I did last weekend. That's all on my Patreon. So go check out the Patreon. Take a gander at that. Some of that stuff is open for everybody, but if you want to read the actual comics, it is $1. So $1 to read all my comics, not a bad deal. Besides that, you could also subscribe to this channel. That helps. That helps. And like the video is always helpful as well. If you really want to be a star performer, share it with somebody. You know, if you like comics or illustration, maybe you know someone else who does. So share it with others, because the more people that subscribe, the more views I get, the more opportunity I have to share more with you. So there you go. With that all out of the way, let's talk comics specifically. Let's talk about panels and things like that. Now, you guys know comics are made 10 by 15 inch pages. We've talked about that many times. This is the part of the process that I like the most. I really do. I like the rough sketches. I like coming up with the panels, coming up with how they're created, things like that. And let me just tell you how I do it. So this is just what I do. A lot of people use thumbnails. I consider these like thumbnails, although they're pretty big. What I did was I got the dimensions of the 10 by 15 live area, and I made a little like grid out of that. I shrunk it down. I don't remember what the multiplier was, but I multiplied it down, and I made this little like perfectly ratioed out the page. And then I use this as a little grid to do my little pages. So it's somewhere around, what is it, 2 by 3s? I can just look it up real quick. It is, and we're here in the States, so we're using the old Imperial System. It is almost 3 by 4.5, something like that. So 3 by 4.5 is this little grid. So I make these out. Now this is my little, not cheat sheet, but just little like area that I get to work in, right? This is a thumbnail. This is kind of like planning out the page. Now a lot of artists, professional artists, they'll do multiple versions of a page, right? They'll do maybe 5, maybe 10, and they'll just figure out what composition works best for that page. Now, myself, I used to do that. Now I'm a little bit more lazy. When I write the script, I do what's called a full script, where I write out panels, descriptions, so it's all laid out, so I can actually hand it to somebody else to draw it if needed be. So because of that, I already kind of know what my panel layout is, and so I just do one version. But that said, there are a couple panels here I'm not super thrilled with that I probably will go back and do many times. So this is basically just like a rough guide that we do. And I use a little blue line, just because, I mean, it's not that I need to take it to a Xerox machine and need a blue line. For some reason, I just like that look, maybe. I don't know. It just seems easier than using, a normal pencil and erasing it. And then I use a couple pens. I use a little tech pen, this little like roller guy. And then I like to have a big Sharpie pen, kind of just for blacks. So I do kind of a little bit of spotting blacks in here, getting some high contrast stuff. And I'll put the word balloons in a little bit just to kind of like see where some of that's happening. I don't do it everywhere, but you'll see a couple spots I'll put some word balloons. Again, just to kind of like break it down. Now, what I did actually for a story, you guys probably remember I worked on this little horror story that's actually coming on a Kickstarter pretty soon called The Tear. And for The Tear, it was only 8 pages. But on that one, I actually scanned these in the computer. And then I blew that up to actual 15 by 10. And I used that as a guide to do the drawings digitally. And that actually was kind of fun. And because I wasn't using paper, I was just doing it digitally. This was kind of a nice little like overlay that I could use, almost like a light box that I can then draw and render off this. And because the ratios are perfect, these panels actually kind of turned out just the way these were. So I might do that again because in a way it's like doing roughs, right? But miniaturized. Anyway, so that's just like process wise. So in this story, this is the character, and he's, these things are happening. So let's just break down a little bit about kind of like some basic things you see in comics. One of the things we see a lot in comics is the rule of thirds. And that's just kind of a classic like art thing we see a lot in just art in general. Something about the rule of thirds, there's some, the perfect square and different kind of geometric things that is it called the golden square? The golden angle? Something, I forgot, I apologize. But there's some ratios in here, and of course you'll see pages broken in halves and full splashes, but a lot of times the rules of third are applied, and you'll see that, for instance, these 2 pages here, you'll see I'm breaking it up pretty much in the rules of thirds, although this one might be a little bit larger here. I don't know if I'll keep it that way or if I'll make it actually even thirds. Here as well, you'll see thirds here, but then there'll be some things that will pop out. So I'll have this panel, which is kind of an insert inside of this area, and then this one as well, and then these will be no borders, right? This really is what I'm doing is using some of those rules that that Wally Wood had, right? And I've showed this to you guys before. I'll show it to you again. Remember Wally Wood's 22 panels that always work, right? It's some of these same principles, right? Big head, close up, open panel, right? Open panel, things like that. High contrast, silhouettes. So it's those kind of deals, right? Silhouettes, high contrast, open panel. I remember someone at Image said something about always doing like one open panel per page. I can't remember who that was. Someone said that. It's just like a general like thing. And if you look at some of those early Image books, you might see that. That'd be kind of funny. Okay, a little swig for the working man. So, going here, we've got kind of establishing shot. A lot of times when you're opening a new scene, you have that establishing shot. Then you go into some sort of a close-up or medium on the center of interest or character or thing that is, it's the focus of the scene. And this one, I actually did this in half, so this is like 1 and 1. And then I had this kind of close-up of him with some emotion coming up on him. And then I'm actually going to let this fade out. So no panel borders here. This is going to go to the bleed. And this will kind of sketch out. So no background. And just kind of give a little bit of artsy flair. Again, similarly here, we're actually breaking this in 2s. Again, for the first half, it's divided again, another half and half. We have the cops coming in the distance. We have the main character who is sullen, and he's just kind of like without background, focusing on him really. So our eyes are here. Now I could do a background and everything, and if this was like Jean-Paul Leon, rest in peace, he does backgrounds and everything, which looks great, and it's very realistic, and it has that great real world feel. But if you want to really emphasize things, strip out the background, right? And manga is a great example of doing that, where they will take out backgrounds and things that they just kind of emphasize. So that's another little trick. And then the second half of this page is kind of the introduction of a secondary character who's the main focus here, which would be the mother who's coming into off the porch. Third page is now again broken up again into halves, where these two scenes, the cops are coming out of the car, she's talking. This is actually a panel, and then another panel here with them response. So there's a column response here, and then this half is the silhouette, kind of dramatic scene of almost like a showdown here. Lastly, in this scene, you see kind of in thirds, but more emphasis on certain things. So you'll notice that you do thirds, but then you move these up and down depending upon the time you want to spend, right, on something. And so if you want it to be a quick moment, you make it smaller, you make it bigger. If you want them to linger on the image a little bit longer, give it some more emphasis. Then a whole nother scene, you can start seeing what I'm doing here. We start off with a big, again, establishing shot, but now the establishing shot is a character. And then next is a long thing. McFarlane does this a lot too. If you look at those old Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man, both of those, you'll see he does these big long panels across. I'm not good at those. I don't like those, but we're gonna try it. And then that of course breaks it down. Now, if you break this all the way down into thirds, right, into a 9-panel grid, you can see we're kind of doing that a little bit, but here, I might scoot this over a little bit to then have this. So you can see this is kind of like thirds here as well. Something to think about. Again, we talked about this where we have emphasis on the dog getting kicked outside. We have these little, I'm calling them inserts, but they're basically little inserted little panels for some quick little motion, quick little moment inside of the larger panel. And then this is a close-up here. Same type of thing. She goes out, sees the dog dead. This horrific look, which I actually kind of like that. Every now and then we get some like renderings that I kind of like. Oh, that's kind of cool. I like this look. I like this. So sometimes on the smaller scale, you kind of can see that, which is neat. If we flip it over, just to get a couple more, I'll just show you. I just did these yesterday. Here we've got, now you also can break it down into fours, right? 1, 2, right? And so these are all in theory just about equal. Maybe this is a little bit bigger. And here we have new scene. He's coming in on the scene. She's there. Then we have these close-ups showing emotion because he learns that the dog is dead. Here we have now opening this up because I really want this to be a powerful scene. So we're doing halves again, where we have now this hug of the two characters. I didn't ink this yet, but I will. I don't really need to, but I like to just to kind of like set those blacks in. They're hugging, her on her knees, he's standing. A close in on the face, and then side view of them, and then introduction of a new character at the end of that panel, kind of like, oh, what's going on? And then we have this. Notice half, and then this broken up into fours. And then we'll put a splash. And I don't know if this will be a splash. I think this will be another panel here. We'll do something, and then this will be like a 3/4 of a thing. Okay? So there's a lot of different little tricks you can do. Rules of thirds, big panels when you want to have a moment, have these little inserted panels to give a little extra information or maybe some dialogue moments, back and forths. Let's look at some real comics. I say real comics, the stuff that you guys know. Now, here's two books. I just literally went on my shelf and I'm like, let's just grab some stuff. I grabbed Battling Boy and I grabbed the complete Frank Miller Batman. We've not talked about either of these, but I thought these are both probably excellent. What did we start with? Let's start with Batman. What the hell? Let's do this one, which is David. Do you pronunciate it Mazzucchelli? Is it Mazzucchelli? This is a great freaking book, you guys. I love this book so much. Again, let's just take a quick look at a couple of pages just to kind of like show you what we're talking about. Did Frank do background? Did he do any kind of roughs on this? I don't. It's all. Yeah, I think it's all David, but you never know with Frank Miller what he's up to. Establishing shot, right? Not a full half, but almost a half page. Then we've got some more building on what's going on. Close up, panel without borders, right? If we go here, again, what a beautiful background here this is. Thirds, right? Kind of the rule of thirds. These 3 strips that we see. Then we get these little inserted pages, right? I just look at that, thirds, right? And again, this can, you change the width depending on what you need to talk about. There's just some headshots, squeeze those in. You need these bigger because you got full bodies, you got a full whole scene here. You got some depth here too, right? So you've got these characters in the foreground, midground, and the background. You got multiple layers way back there, okay? Panels pops out, no panel borders on this. Then we get extreme close-up. So this here has like 4 or 5 of the Wally Wood types of panels in here. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's breaking up really small, but there's certain ones that need more emphasis. Silhouettes, right? Establishing, large, small, going through the thirds. You see the thirds in here? Again, thirds here as well. One of the things I really like about this too is really putting the figure in the backgrounds. And the figure's not always massive in the panel, but you get enough of the background here to really put him in the setting. And I feel like sometimes even my own work, I make the figure so large in the panel that there's really not good room for the setting. But this is brilliant stuff. Let's go flip over to Paul Pope's stuff. Now, you guys know I'm a huge Paul Pope fan, and I can't believe we haven't talked about this. We need to talk about it. Or have we? Dude, I don't even know. We've done this channel for like over 2 years. Maybe we have done this. Now I go check. Let's see what rules we can see here. Yeah, great. Sometimes too, you establish a scene on an item, right? On something small, and then you zoom out of it, and that's kind of like what we're doing here. Great action. I love the way he does this little like his line work. It's 3, right? There's 3 again. Moving this line according to what he needs. And I guess it does show some movement too. You do get a little bit more. It's more if it's just like very it's more sterile that way. This does give you some movement. This is a great little like tilted Dutched angle. You'll see that a lot. In fact, in mine too. I didn't point it out, but I put some Dutched angles here. Again, rule of thirds. We see this is broken down into thirds as well. 2, 1, 3. Right? You see this a lot. This kind of thing. Also notice this goes out to the bleed. This is the only thing that goes out to the bleed. This doesn't. This actually is like a manga thing. You see this a lot in manga, where you'll have a page, and he's influenced by manga. You'll see that a lot. Should I just grab one real quick? Let me just. This is so good. In here, they break it down into 4s. 4s again. Quickly. Where's one of my mangas? Here. Here's Monster. We've talked about this many times. This is it. This is exactly it, right? This is exactly it, right? Actually, because we're reading it this way, it's actually read where this opens us up into the scene or the page. This opens us up, then we go here, then we're here, here, right? And this, look, again, and again, all the time, and again, right, and again, where on the top you'll have this you'll have this establishing thing that goes out, that kind of makes it larger, kind of brings out the story again, right? And then whatever size this is, you either have 2 or you have 1, depending on what we got here. Yeah, it's like the same kind of deal. Anyway, I think that's it. I just wanted to share with you kind of like what I'm doing, as well as how it applies to comics and looking at books and thinking about how to read them, the decisions that are made. Let me know in the comments if you have any particular questions about composition. And I could really, if you want, go into either all these in full, or we could just talk about more like just art, general art, page composition, the vision, how things move. We didn't talk about it too much here, but like, for instance, in this example, his eyes are going here, you know what I mean? And so there's this dynamic movement. Here, not so much. In fact, what I should do is I should scoot these over slightly so it goes here and then here, then this goes here, then this goes, put some kind of dynamic moments in here so you can kind of see how the page moves and the flows of the art flows. That's also mentioned actually in one of our lessons on composition, and we went into it in pretty big detail in this. So if you want to look more, we did one of the famous art courses, and there was a lesson here about composition. In fact, this is it right here, right? And we talk about these different elements of composition, right? What works, what doesn't work, to build your page, your picture area, all these kind of principles. Anyway, so that's another video there. So there you go. A lot to kind of mull over, think about, let that marinate in your little noggin. Thank you for joining me in this channel. I love it. Hope you're having fun with it. Be cool. Have a great weekend. Check out my Patreon and my other channels. If you like music, I got the Outgroove. If you want to hear me talk about all this other stuff, including Valve's new Steam Deck, go check out my personal channel. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.